ever known that something is wrong only to have someone else tell you that it's totally fine? Maybe it's a gut feeling about someone or a hunch about a project where you speak up only to be shut down by a colleague. Or maybe something more personal, like a physical or mental health issue where you know that something isn't right with how you're feeling, and then you tell your doctors only to have them dismiss what you're saying entirely. Today's episode is all about those moments, the times when we tell ourselves that behaving means not making someone else uncomfortable by pushing back and advocating for ourselves. We're going to learn how to unbehave by pushing back anyway until someone finally listens. And our teacher is the wonderful Lindsay Scola. Lindsay spent years working at the highest levels. We're talking Congress, the Emmys, and the advanced teams for the Obamas. Yet behind the scenes, she knew that something was very wrong with her. She was chronically exhausted. And I mean, we're talking taking naps in bathrooms and on airport floors. And she'd been telling doctors about it for 20 years. And she'd been dismissed every single time. But she never gave up. She never let others convince her that she was wrong about what she was feeling. And she finally got answers that changed her entire life. This episode is about how to keep believing in your truth, even when others don't, and what self-advocacy can really look like, especially in systems that often ignore women's voices. Lindsay is funny and real, and she has a completely no BS approach that I think every single one of you needs to hear. She also provides insights on sleep that blew my damn mind. You just need to hear it straight from her. So let's get into it. Here's my conversation with Lindsay. So you and I have a similar situation in our lives where we were both diagnosed with respective conditions much later in life than would most likely happen. Can you help us understand your journey and talk a little bit about why it took so long to get diagnosed?
Yeah. So I was diagnosed with narcolepsy at 35 and ADHD at 41. And both of them are sort of a similar story that we don't talk about sleep and we don't talk about ADHD, especially how it looks in women.
Mhm.
Thankfully, there's more on the ADHD side now, and the internet is one of the reasons that I got diagnosed. But, when I was 16, I started having these moments of just extraordinary sleepiness. Like I was otherwise engaged, and then I'd be sitting in class and feel like I had no option but to go to sleep. And I started taking naps in bathrooms. And I told my doctor that I was feeling really tired, and she told me that I was busy, and busy people are tired. And it felt dismissive, but also like some secret initiation into adulthood. And, I went on to work in as a political staffer. And, when you're tired, you're doing it right. We wore exhaustion as a badge of honor. Uh, I sort of carried that with me, through almost 2 decades. And anytime I did talk to doctors about feeling really tired, I got handed a sleep hygiene handout and sent on my way. I had one doctor that was convinced that because I used my laptop in bed, that was what was making me so tired. And if I just stopped using the laptop, everything would get better. And this was my normal. And when I was 35, I just hit a wall. If I didn't have to get out of bed, I wouldn't. And I just sort of felt like a lunatic zombie. I had zero emotional regulation, and my brain just felt like Swiss cheese. And I was taking naps in bathrooms and on theater floors and, basically wherever I could find sort of a secret place to sleep. And I went to my doctor at sort of my wit's end and was like, I need help figuring this out. And I got sent an at-home sleep test for sleep apnea, which came back negative, and was told I was fine and given more sleep hygiene information. And I was apoplectic. I went home, I drank an entire bottle of red wine, and I ate a pint of Ben and Jerry's Cherry Garcia, and I found the end of the internet. So I was convinced that the at-home sleep test did not pick up on what I had, which is correct. I thought that maybe it was still sleep apnea because it was the only sleep disorder I'd ever heard of, and that the at-home tests were created by the VA as a low-cost alternative to diagnose middle-aged men, and that wasn't me. And so, therefore, it was the test's fault, and they needed to send me for a test in a sleep lab. And I'm having like a literal meltdown on the floor of my doctor's office at 35 at this moment. And she stopped me mid-sentence and said, "We are beyond both of our knowledge on sleep. I will send you to a sleep specialist." But I've been complaining about this for almost 2 decades.
Mhm.
No one brought up a sleep specialist with me. I didn't know that sleep specialists were a thing. And it took me having a meltdown for somebody to say, okay, let's go to the next stage on this. And she's not alone in that. I mean, the average doctor worldwide is receiving less than 3 hours of sleep education. Another, study in the US was less than 2 hours of sleep education. And it's this thing that we spend a third of our life doing. So I finally got diagnosed at 35, and that solved a lot of the problem. So I was on treatment. My brain came awake. I found out that I was creative. Before that I was working or sleeping, and now all of a sudden, with the ability to stay awake and think more and be in my brain and my body, I started writing. And as I hit my 40s and I started perimenopause pretty early, I'm definitely in the throes of it right now at 43. My brain was starting to get really slow. And I was feeling really paralyzed. And it didn't matter if I was like trying to write an email for work or figure out what I was going to eat for breakfast. The idea of making decisions felt like there was just sort of this endless web of possibilities. And thankfully, around this time, I was writing a pilot script, and the producer suggested adding a neurodivergent character. And so I decided to give the woman in her 30s ADHD. And so I'm now doing research about women with ADHD, because before I thought it was like, little boys bouncing
Yep.
off, the walls in school. And suddenly she became the easiest character in the script for me to write. Because I was writing myself.
This
I was like,
sounds
oh,
familiar.
there might be something to this. And it just like, there was like this big aha moment. But then I had to get diagnosed, and like the whole process of finding someone to diagnose me was sort of insane. Like, you would like make an appointment here and then you get a phone call. Oh, we don't do ADHD. And the thing is like, I'm making a decision based off research in the internet that it's potentially ADHD. Like, I want someone to evaluate me and tell me what's going on. So then I finally found someone who evaluates for ADHD, and she tells me at the end of anytime I brought something up on it, she would be like, oh, that's what the lay literature says, but it's not actually something we look for. And then she tells me at the end of this call, she's like, I don't think you have it. I just think you're getting older and you need to start keeping a calendar. And I'm like, lady, I've been keeping a calendar since I was a teenager. And she's like, no, for like social things too. Like, I didn't come to you because I was missing drinks with the girls. Like, I
Mhm.
came to you because my life feels completely halted. And like, I was keeping the schedule for like the president of the United States. Like, I know how to keep a calendar. This isn't my problem. And he decided that that was not the person to continue working with, and finally found an amazing therapist. And I told her what had been happening. And she's like, look, I'm not going to tell you of ADHD to tell you of ADHD. I was like, again, I don't care what I have. I just want someone to tell me why my brain is operating this way. So she did the evaluation, and not only do I have inattentive ADHD, I scored in the 99th percentile because I like to go big.
I feel frustrated on your behalf. And there's a number of different issues as to why, but some of them being you going to someone for help and them telling it's you, that you're wrong, it's your problem, this traditional kind of gaslighting someone and telling them you're overreacting, blah, 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 blah. And I'm curious, how did you stay motivated to continue to self-advocate when even the specialists, the doctors, and all the things were telling you that nothing was wrong with you?
I mean, for me, it was the idea that I can't keep living like this. Just everything was taking longer. My motivation had totally tanked. And I I knew what I used to feel like in my brain, and I knew what I was capable before that. And just like this moment of this can't be all that there is. And, I knew something had changed. I knew something felt harder. And I knew that I wasn't going to give up until I got answers. And, I thought it was ADHD, but again, it could have been anything. I just needed help getting there. I missed that day in med school. And apparently so did these other specialists. But for me, it was that I knew that something was happening in my brain, and I wasn't going to stop until I at least had answers of what was going on, and then a partner to help me figure out how to navigate it. And this is what happens when you get diagnosed with ADHD, especially in your 40s, is you just have aha moment after aha moment. It's like, oh, that's why I was staging walkouts for unfair treatment in the lunchroom when I was in first grade, because I have an injustice sensitivity. And oh, that's why every report card as a child said that I cried too much because I, have rejection sensitivity dysphoria. Like, oh, this makes so much sense. Oh, that's why I threw the coat hanger off the door because my brain couldn't figure out how to process that something was caught in the door jamb. It doesn't give you a roadmap for what to do next. And so I was incredibly grateful to have the therapist that I had who diagnosed me, that worked with me on finding a lot of real tools to start moving forward. And once I had some tools in my toolbox, like I started to be able to see how to create my own tools and how to build on that and how to make systems that made my brain feel better. And, Ritalin helps with that too.
The validation question, because I was diagnosed with ADHD, I think when I was 37, and I had the same experience of, oh, now all of this makes sense. And I was so frustrated that I didn't have the information, the diagnosis earlier, because I felt like I unnecessarily struggled and suffered and really was in systems that didn't work for me and felt like something was wrong with me. And I'm curious for you, did you have a similar experience? And what did you ever think about what would have felt different if you had been diagnosed earlier?
Oh my God, every day. I still do. That there is a specific type of grief that comes up with any of these diagnoses, especially when it went on as long as it did for, narcolepsy and for ADHD with me, is that how different my life could have been if I didn't feel like I was fighting a chaos monster. Well, all right, let's see. If I didn't feel like I was the chaos monster for this long period of time, I wasn't the chaos monster. I was fighting the chaos monster. If I had had tools to work with the chaos monster, my life would have been different. Now, that's not to say that my life hasn't been amazing and I haven't done incredible things, but it could have been a lot easier.
Yeah.
There could have been a lot more time where I wasn't thinking that I was broken for so long. I specifically on like the 2008 Obama campaign, I was an advance person, which is the coolest job in the world. You're a couple of days ahead of the candidate, and you get plopped on the ground and you just have to figure it out. And we were building these 75,000 person rallies, and I was a crowd person. So I'm figuring out how to get the people and how to get them inside. And it was just this giant puzzle piece in this quick period of time. Now, it was the ADHD superpowers that
Right.
allowed me to do that and not feel stressed about it. Like that was exhilarating. However, I'm also excessively tired. I'm surrounded by the best and the brightest. And here I am sneaking naps in bathrooms and thinking that I'm lazy because I don't see my colleagues doing that. And like, what would it have been like to know, oh, this is why you're always tired. And here's a treatment to help you not feel that way. Um, there's been a lot of tears shed over this. Now, I'm grateful to my long diagnosis period and to discovering narcolepsy and to digging into everything. Now, I'm the type of person, and also ADHD, I will hyper focus my way to a lot of information. That when I got diagnosed with narcolepsy, like I wanted to know all of the things. I wanted to know all of the medications. I wanted to understand like how I could make my life the best it possibly could be with this. And I, surrounded myself with advocates and with researchers and with, sleep medicine professionals to learn everything that I could. And then sleep became my career. So, I'm grateful that I got to where I did, but oh, what it could have been like if I wasn't going through school thinking that I was broken because I don't retain information that I read.
This is something I wonder about, especially with how much information is coming out about women being diagnosed with ADHD or other conditions later in life, is because we've normalized chronic stress and exhaustion and busyness and overwhelm. When we feel those, a lot of us just say, like, this is par for the course. This is what we need to do to succeed. When in reality, we're neurodivergent and we are really struggling in a system that isn't built for us to be able to thrive within it. And I'm curious, as you were going through this, at least my experience, growing up as a people-pleasing woman who was not allowed to make people uncomfortable. The idea of pushing back on medical professionals and people who are perhaps in the wrong, that would make me just cringe. Did you have any of that? And how did that feel for you? And were you in relationship with the former doctors at all at that point?
The thing about the work that I was doing in the political world is that I was moving a lot. So I would be someplace for a year or, maybe 2 years, but never longer than that. Also probably ADHD, that I changed jobs a lot. So I didn't have doctors for long periods of time.
Okay.
Now, the doctor that eventually got me to the sleep specialist, she remained my GP for a number of years after that. And so, she got to learn what narcolepsy was along with me. But I didn't have that moment of being able to go back to doctors who had completely dismissed me and say, like, look, there was a thing there. Um, I did a lot of people pleasing earlier before the mask sort of fell off with the ADHD. I have never had an issue on pushing back. I am grateful to parents who made sure that they told me that I was supposed to be an advocate for myself, and when I needed them, they were going to be an advocate for me too. Um, uh, we had abstinence only until marriage education at my high school, and my family talked about science, and so knew this shitty that it was, and I took my school on about this and the school board, and my parents were standing there right behind me. Ended up getting my first job with NARAL Pro Choice Washington while I was a senior in high school to make sure that we had medically and scientifically accurate sex education in Washington State. So I was sort of raised on this idea that you keep pushing. Now, we never talk about sleep, so I didn't know that I should be pushing back harder on how I felt about my sleepiness, and neither did my parents. So we all just thought I was a really good sleeper. Like, as soon as my head hit the pillow, I was asleep. And if I was in a car that I wasn't driving, I was asleep. And if a flight was delayed, I'm asleep on the floor of the airport. Like, nobody should be willingly sleeping on the floor of the airport. Anybody who is listening to this, if you or someone in your family is willingly sleeping on the floor of the airport, and it's not like one of those situations where like everybody is snowed in and there's no place to go, like, this is a flag that something is not good with your sleep. But we didn't know. And nobody ever taught us about sleep, which is sort of this like crazy thing that we spend a third of our life doing. It's a real mystery to people. And until I was diagnosed with narcolepsy, like I thought sleep was like severance, began in the morning and like nothing happens in between. My innie is having some crazy party somewhere, but like I had no idea. And really, like sleep is the foundation of everything else in our lives. It's, where our muscle recovery comes from. It's where our brain takes out the trash so that we can, fend off, neurodegenerative disorders later on. It's where we make creative connections. Like all of this is happening while we are sleeping and we have no idea. So we don't know what healthy sleep looks like, and we don't know what disordered sleep looks like. And it's costing people their health.
I want to get into the sleep thing, but before I do, you mentioned something earlier, preconceived notions. And this was something, especially with ADHD, my idea of how this manifested is a young boy running around, like not just so hyper, he's not even able to sit down. Preconceived notions for you on both narcolepsy and ADHD that helped you stay undiagnosed for so long. What were some of the main ones?
Well, I never in my wildest dreams would have considered narcolepsy. So even in the moment that I hear it come out of my sleep doctor's mouth, I like cock my head and I look at him and I'm like, I'm sorry, sir. I do not believe you are right. I have never fallen asleep into a bowl of soup.
Yeah, like that's what I imagine. Like every
Because
movie and yeah.
that is what we imagine with narcolepsy. And it has been in the movies, I have that Deuce Bigelow, male gigolo moment forever seared into my brain. And that's not what narcolepsy looks like. It looks like either like feeling really engaged and then having these waves of feeling really sleepy and knowing that you need to sleep. I compare it, and I didn't come up with this, but somebody once told me this, and it is the perfect analogy of like when you have to pee really badly, you're not going to wet your pants, but like a bathroom is imminent. And it is this like sort of searing, painful tiredness behind my eyes that comes up. Or you wake up feeling like you never went to sleep. And so people with narcolepsy can feel like they've been awake for 48 to 72 hours, um, even after a full night's rest. My third day on a specific medication, I woke up crying because I didn't know what it felt like to wake up refreshed. I didn't know what it felt like to wake up ready to start your day, because I've always woken up because I've had to, but I didn't know what it felt like to actually feel like I slept. And like that was a huge revelation for me. But then there was also these other symptoms that I had no idea to put together. So narcolepsy has 5 distinct symptoms that on their own seem completely unrelated. So there's also hypnagogic or hypnopompic hallucinations, which are hallucinations as you're falling or asleep or waking up. And they can be audio, visual, sensory, or all three. And I've had these audio sensations my whole life where I hear things that aren't there as I'm waking up. I hear things crash. I've heard people speaking Russian in the hallway, construction at 3 a.m. that wasn't happening. I'll hear my husband talking to me that he's sound asleep. And the funniest one, and this is all after I was diagnosed, but my husband was out of town and I woke up to the dog barking, and there was a chair with clothes on top of it by the door, and I don't sleep with contacts in, so I'm negotiating with the chair and the dog who is asleep next to me on the bed like wakes up and is looking at me like I am certifiable. But it's
Mom.
uh, this has been going on my whole life. And then the visual ones tend to be a lot scarier for me, of, something coming into the room and scurrying across the ceiling and coming down like it's going to get me. And then they're sometimes paired with sleep paralysis where you can't move or you can't scream. And then for some people with narcolepsy, there is cataplexy, which is a loss of muscle tone with emotions. And for me, it's pretty subtle. It's in my hands, occasionally in my face, but for other people, they could completely fall down. And then there's disrupted sleep, where you can fall asleep fine, but you can't stay asleep. There were big portions of my life that I just thought that I was really haunted. So, I'm generally awake in the middle of the night because I can't stay asleep. And, 3 o'clock is always the witching hour in horror films. And there was this one very vivid hallucination where a small child asked to hold my hand. And I went out and purchased sage for my Echo Park home in LA to get rid of my child ghost. I'm still pretty convinced it was like a yes and situation on The Haunting. But never in my wildest dreams would I have been like, oh, this is a neurological episode. I need to go see a doctor. So I never would have put all of these things together. And then, on the ADHD side, like there are so many like superpowers with ADHD that we don't talk about. That's the ability to do like big, high stress things without feeling stressed, because you're like in the moment, like your brain just steps up and it's going to put the pieces together. And so, like, I was the executive director for the 2013 inaugural parade with 10,000 participants and 250,000 people in the crowd, and like didn't break a sweat. But I try to put a sports bra on while like slightly damp, and like I'm in total meltdown. And like I had no idea that like my lack of emotional regulation my entire life was a symptom of ADHD. And so I'm not flagging that. Nobody's asking me questions about that. My husband and I found all of my report cards at my parents' house a couple of years ago, and we like sat down to laugh about them because we were sure they were all going to be like, Lindsay talks too much, which granted, they had plenty of that. But they all said something similar. So they would praise my parents, that if there was like a new kid in class, I was there to hold their hand. I was the person who was making sure that everybody was heard in discussions. I'm, like making sure everybody's taken care of. And on the other hand, they would talk about how I cried too much and how this was going to be a problem for me in life. And like those are flips of the same coin. And that's also ADHD. And so, this was all happening throughout elementary school and middle school and high school. I cried throughout my whole career, because I don't cry because I'm sad or upset. I cry when I'm frustrated. I cry when my brain can't comprehend what's going on. And I was chastised for crying. No one ever helped me figure out why it was happening.
I'm sorry. Um, the sleep. You said you've turned exploring sleep into your career. I feel like our old playbook, we don't really take sleep seriously because we glorify all the stress and overwork and exhaustion and workaholism. Sleep is something that we brag about not needing or not like we've only slept for 4 hours. What have you learned about sleep, its importance, and as you mentioned, some of these basic hygiene things that most people overlook?
So, first of all, if you always feel unrested, like that is a sign that everybody needs to know is is a sign of a sleep disorder. And there are lots of sleep disorders, and they're way more common than you would think. Narcolepsy is rare, it's about 1 in 2,000 people, but something like sleep apnea is 1 in 5 people. So getting people to think about that. But then we've made sleep feel very complicated, especially now that everybody is wearing a tracker and you've got all of the ads for the different supplements and everybody's trying to sell you some sort of sleep tool. Sleep is 140 is a $1.4 billion industry. It's huge because people are selling so many stuff and we made sleep feel really complicated. Sleep itself is a lot more simple, and the more simple that we treat it, the easier it is. And so it's things like waking up at the same time every morning, getting natural light within the first 30 minutes of waking up to set your circadian rhythm, making sure that you're getting as much natural light as you can during the day so that you get melatonin later at night. Melatonin is not a sleeping pill like we buy in the drugstore. It's actually a dimmer switch. It tells our brain that sleep is coming. And then wind down routine should be really simple. It's about doing something about an hour before we go to sleep that we can do every day, even when life is lifey. So I've got an alarm on my phone that says wash your face, and like I go to the bathroom and sometimes it's just running the wipe across my face. Sometimes it's using the expensive skincare that I purchased and swore I'd use every day. But it's that act of getting up, spending that time by myself, taking the day off of my face, that tells my brain, like, okay, sleep is coming, and giving myself a cue about that. And then having tools for yourself. So, as somebody with ADHD, uh, I have a very loud internal narrator, and she gets louder and meaner as the night goes on. Her name is
Oh.
Janet. And I have found that the thing that shuts Janet up is the sound of other people talking. I like dialogue. I like quick, witty dialogue. So I sleep with a blackout sleep mask with flat Bluetooth panels in it. I turn a comedy show that I've already seen, so I'm not emotionally invested, and I set a timer for 30 minutes, and I'm always out before that timer goes off. But like that's the thing that helps my brain sort of like calm down, relax, head off to sleep. And that can be anything for people. But it's, finding the thing that works for you. Like people love sleep stories. I can't listen to sleep stories because I feel like that person is talking to me and it is my responsibility to listen to them. And that actually keeps me awake. I can't listen to like certain like sleep music because if there's a repeating pattern, I start like thinking about the pattern and like waiting for it to turn over again. But people talking does it for me. So I want people to like be curious about their sleep and try things so that they feel better about it. Because the more effort we put into it, the harder sleep gets. And there's a condition now, orthosomnia, where people are so worried about their sleep. They wake up in the morning feeling good about their sleep, and then they look at their tracker and it says that they had an 80 sleep score, and now they feel terrible. So really making that simpler, and then talking about what sleep disorders look like so that we can actually get people evaluated and treated and, living much happier, healthier lives.
The point that you made at the very top about if you don't feel rested, that is a sign that something might be going on. I have, I'd say, like 50-50. Sometimes I wake up and I'm doing great, and sometimes I wake up and I'm dead to the world. At what point are you looking at this sort of information and being like, you should talk to someone about that?
I would say, I mean, if it's happening 50% of the time where you're not feeling great, that's the time to talk to a sleep specialist and to get evaluated, especially if there's other things going on. If we look at something like sleep apnea, are you waking up multiple times a night to pee? Are you waking up with a headache or a sore throat, headaches in the morning? Or do you just feel really fatigued during the day? So like looking at things like that. Or if you're just really just never feeling rested, like that could be a sign. Sleep disorders don't always show up at night. It certainly didn't for me. I thought I was a really excellent sleeper outside of this, disrupted sleep where I thought I was haunted. I thought for most of the time that I was a really good sleeper. It's how you're feeling during the day.
Mhm.
Um, And, especially with ADHD, there's a huge crossover with sleep disorders. And so there's sort of like an idea out there that ADHD messes up with your sleep or that ADHD makes you really tired. But really, two things can be going on, and you should be treated for both.
Noted. You mentioned making sleep into your career. What does that look like?
So I'm a speaker now. I go to companies and I talk about how sleep is really our competitive advantage. High performers, especially, like to think that sleep is the thing that they earn after the work is done, but sleep is actually the thing that helps you get the work done in the first place. So I do a lot of that. I also coach people who have not made sleep a priority and are going to sleep with their laptop and their iPhone and their iPad to bed. And then, they wake up in the middle of the night and they get on and they try to do work and then they can't get back to sleep. And then they're wondering why they're tired all the time. So, really helping people put systems in their life Um, that help them get the sleep that they need so that they can be performing better during the day. And then I also consult on a bunch of different things, especially where it comes to patient advocacy. Around things like narcolepsy and sleep apnea diagnoses, and then I also work with companies about making sleep a priority and encouraging people to get screened for sleep disorders.
Is that all? Patient advocacy, I'm honing in on that one. For people who are listening who are where you were, where they're feeling like something is wrong, but they have been told that something isn't. What are some of the first steps in patient advocacy of people just speaking up for themselves and believing in their own voice, wisdom, and what their body is telling them?
So first of all, understanding that your PCP likely did not have education in this, and so they are not asking the right questions, and they might not know what to do when you're complaining about feeling really sleepy. So, knowing that sleep specialists are a thing, you may need to get a referral to see one, and uh, definitely ask for that. And it's okay to demand things of our doctors if they don't know what to do. The AASM, the American Association of Sleep Medicine, has a page that you can go on and find sleep centers near you so that you can go and schedule that appointment. And, I tell people, like, if you are concerned about your sleep or how you are feeling during the day and you don't have a sleep disorder, I would much rather the doctor say, we evaluated you. It might be something else. Let's get you back with your general practitioner to look at other, possibilities than think, I don't know, I'm not sure. Maybe we'll wait on it and have something going on when there was that right person there to evaluate you.
I've seen my brother as one of these people who doesn't get enough sleep. And I have sent him articles before about the profound negative impact on your health that not getting enough sleep has. For you, as you've dug into the research, besides not optimizing your performance, what are some of the negative impacts when people aren't getting enough sleep?
Uh, Feeling not being able to get things done in the way that you used to. So I think a lot of people are really able to like muscle through in their 20s and 30s, and then 40s and 50s hit, and it becomes a lot harder. So your cognitive performance declines when you are not getting enough sleep. And for most adults, that's between 7 and 9 hours. Now, the problem that we see when we look at studies about people being underslept is that they don't know that their cognitive performance is declining. And so people think that they've adjusted to sleeping less hours, but they haven't. Things are continuing to decline. And so it's important to know that you might think that you're operating at the same level that you once did, and you're not. And so, really, it's about focusing on getting those right hours so that our brain is getting replenished, our body is getting replenished, but we're able to show up in the way that we need to after we get that sleep.
What are you most excited about that you are working on right now?
Well, I'm very excited for my TEDx talk to be out in the world.
Yay.
So I can't wait for everybody to watch that. Um, and I'm really excited about talking about sleep apnea and women right now because I don't think we have had enough of that. And, sleep apnea in women looks very different. than it does for what we picture of it. You know, we picture the man with the thick neck and the square jaw snoring loud enough to shake the house. And one, not everybody with sleep apnea snores. There is no body type assigned to sleep apnea. You can be any size and have sleep apnea. My size 2 sister has sleep apnea. Um, and the symptoms look really different. So, like I said, waking up to pee multiple times a night, or having, heartburn or reflux at night, those can be symptoms of sleep apnea. And if you are feeling a lot of fatigue during the day, can also be a symptom of sleep apnea, even if you think you're feeling fine. And after 40, women's rates of sleep apnea goes up a lot more than it was before, especially with perimenopause and menopause. And it's so important that women understand that this is a possibility and that there's treatment, because sleep apnea has a lot of downstream health effects. It's increased insulin resistance, increased blood pressure, more metabolic conditions, and then increased risk of heart attack, stroke, Alzheimer's. So it's really important that people understand what this is, that it's detrimental to their health to ignore it, and that there are solutions that they can be sleeping normally and getting all the health benefits.
I want to go back to something that you mentioned earlier. You mentioned about taking naps and feeling lazy. And I think there's a lot of narrative and societal conditioning around rest being something that you have to earn, being something that if you're taking a nap, you're lazy. If you're not producing, you're not worthy. We have all of these ideas that prevent us from resting, recovering, rejuvenating. How do you get over those? And for anyone listening who has that mindset, what is the message?
So if you don't have a problem falling asleep at night, like naps can actually be really good for you. Like there are studies that they lower blood pressure, it helps with, creative thinking. And, if you're setting a timer for like 20, 25 minutes to take your nap, like that's the sweet spot. Just to make sure you're not waking up too deep into your sleep because then you're going to feel kind of gross. Um, but naps can be really helpful for people, but we have to talk about that there's nothing wrong with it. And if you are feeling like you have no choice but to take a nap, that's a sign that you need to get help. But because we just say like naps are lazy, don't do it, we don't have that nuance and we can't have that conversation. And so I will talk about naps as much as I can. Sometimes I wear a necklace that says good at naps because I'm excellent at them. And I think it's so important that people understand that one, there's absolutely nothing wrong with taking a nap. And two, we need to stop making sleep be the enemy of productivity because sleep is actually the thing that makes us more productive. And, with AI here, we're just going to be asked to work more and harder to keep up with everything. And there is no tool out there that you can use to get out of sleep. And so I firmly believe that the best performers going forward are the people who are going to prioritize their sleep.
If you were to give listeners permission to do blank anything, whether it's around their sleep, ADHD, diagnosis, rest, lazy, whatever it might be, what is the permission slip you would give people moving forward to do something differently?
Always advocate for yourself. You have permission to ask more questions. You have permission to get a second opinion, and you have a permission to say no. You need to give me what I need from this. And if that's a doctor telling you that you can't get evaluated for sleep apnea because you don't snore, you have the permission to tell them you want to be evaluated anyway, and there's no skin off their teeth for them to make that happen. So sleep specialists are real. You can go make an appointment. If you need to get a referral from your doctor, it's okay to demand it. I am giving you that permission, but never stop advocating for yourself because your health, your sleep, this is all the most important thing. And, not wanting to make your doctor upset isn't a good enough reason to stand up for your own health.
All right, Lindsay, how do people find you? How do they support you? All the things.
.com, and that's Lindsay with an A, the best kind of Lindsay, in my opinion. I'm on Instagram and LinkedIn, and my DMs are always open. I want to hear from you.
Awesome. We'll have that in the show notes. Thank you. I hope I can sleep well tonight after this conversation, but just really appreciate your perspective and the way that you're helping people push back on the systems.
Thank you.